The sun had set over St. Martha's Girls' High School, casting long shadows across the expansive grounds. Have you heard of the mysterious tree that haunted the grounds of a prestigious boarding school for girls? Every night, the cries of a woman or sometimes a child echoed from its gnarled branches, sending shivers down the spines of the students who lived in the hostel behind it. The prestigious school, known for its high academic standards, harbored a dark secret no one dared to speak about. St. Martha was the pride of the community, where parents who wanted the best for their daughters enrolled them. The school boasted of exceptional teachers, a modern library, and clean hostels. Yet, there was something sinister lurking behind all the excellence. The huge tree, standing tall behind the hostel, its wide, twisted branches seemed to touch the sky, casting a long, ominous shadow over the building. St. Martha's Girls' High School was a former burial ground many years ago, but the church took over and turned it into a prestigious boarding school for girls. No one urinated under the tree. The students, who had been there for years, knew better. Past students, however, had been careless in warning the new ones, leaving out the terrifying details about the tree and its cursed ground. Life went on as usual until one unfortunate day, a young girl named Adugo went behind the hostel to relieve herself. She had been new to the school and had no idea about the whispers or superstitions attached to the tree. Adugo giggled to herself as she walked back to the hostel, her footsteps soft against the cool earth. But something changed after that. The first signs of illness came 3 days later. She grew weak, her body shaking with fever, but no amount of medication could ease her suffering. In her final hours, her classmates gathered around her bed in the sick bay, horrified as she whispered about seeing a woman in her dreams. "She's calling me. She wants me to come." And with that, Adugo passed away. Fear spread like wildfire across the school. The once bustling campus became cloaked in silence as rumors grew. The students knew what was happening, even if the staff tried to downplay it. Every night after Adugo's death, the girls could hear the soft, mournful cries from the tree. The students whispered about the cries of a woman and the child. Fear engulfed the hostels. After night's prep, the girls hurried back to their rooms, their eyes darting nervously towards the tree. Some swore they saw shadows moving near it, but no one dared to get close enough to find out. The staff tried to reassure the students, but it was clear that they were too afraid. A week after Adugo's death, another student made the fatal mistake of angering the spirit that resided in the tree. Her name was Ijoma, a spirited girl who often challenged the school's unwritten rules. One day, after being assigned to clean the hostel grounds, she decided to throw some refuse behind the tree. She laughed off the warnings of her friends, dismissing them as silly superstitions. But within days, Ijoma fell gravely ill, just like Adugo. She complained of nightmares of a woman standing over her bed, calling her name in the dead of night. Soon, Ijoma too was gone. The students were beside themselves with fear. The deaths were piling up and no one seemed able to stop it. The school was unraveling. The once prestigious school was quickly turning into a nightmare. Among the staff was a man known as Old Soldier, the school's gatekeeper. He had been there for years, watching over the grounds like a hawk. He had seen students come and go, but what bothered him now was not just the deaths. It was the fact that they might be connected to something he had kept buried for far too long. Old Soldier grew more restless with each passing day. He needed to do something, so he approached the school's principal, Mrs. Chidiogo. Mrs. Chidiogo was a strict, no-nonsense woman who ruled the school with an iron fist. She had a reputation to protect, and she would not let anything or anyone tarnish it. When Old Soldier told her about his fears concerning the tree and the mysterious deaths, she brushed him off. "Stop disturbing me with these foolish stories," she snapped. "There is nothing wrong with this school. Focus on your duties and don't bring up this nonsense again." But Old Soldier knew better. He could no longer remain silent. The screams that echoed from the tree each night were growing louder, and students were living in terror. He decided to take matters into his own hands. He knew that the only person who could help was someone far more powerful than the principal, a man of God. So he sought out a priest. Father Emmanuel was a priest in the community. When Old Soldier arrived at the church, he was immediately ushered into the priest's office. Without wasting time, he recounted the chilling events that had taken place at the school, the deaths, the cries, and the cursed tree. Father Emmanuel listened intently, his face growing pale as Old Soldier spoke. After a long moment of silence, the priest closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but grave. "There is a great evil tied to the tree," he said quietly. "During our conversation, a vision was revealed to me. Something terrible happened there long ago." At those words, Old Soldier felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. Memories flooded back to him, memories he had tried so hard to suppress. Trembling, he began to tell the priest what had happened many years ago. It was a time when Old Soldier had been much younger, a time when Mrs. Chidiogo was not the hardened woman she was now, but a principal desperate to preserve the school's image at all costs. One of the students had fallen pregnant, a scandal that could have destroyed the school's reputation. Mrs. Chidiogo, new to her role as principal, was determined to protect the school's reputation at all costs. She made sure the pregnant student was hidden away, far away from the eyes of the other students and teachers. Old Soldier had been tasked with guarding the girl, ensuring she didn't leave the secluded area behind the hostel. One evening, when the students went for their evening prayers, the young girl was in labor. She had given birth in secret behind the hostel, under the very tree that now haunted the school. But things had gone terribly wrong. The young mother had begun bleeding profusely. An Old Soldier had begged the principal to take her to the hospital. Yet, Mrs. Chidiogo refused. She feared that if word got out, it would ruin everything she had built. The girl had died there, together with the newborn baby. Mrs. Chidiogo, in her desperation to cover up the tragedy, had buried both the girl and the child in a shallow grave beneath the tree. She threatened Old Soldier, warning him that if he ever spoke of what he had seen, she would destroy his life, even harm his family. Out of fear, he remained silent all these years. When the parents of the girl approached the principal about their daughter, the principal told them that she ran away and no one knows where she is. After fruitless attempts to find the girl, they decided to accept the bitter truth, but her mother couldn't hold on. She died a month later. When he finished speaking, Father Emmanuel nodded slowly, his expressions dark. The girl and her child are taking their revenge. The cries you hear at night are theirs. They want justice. But what can be done? Old Soldier asked, his voice shaking. Students are dying. We need to stop this. The only way to stop it is through prayer, the priest replied. We must pray for their souls and cut down the tree. Only then will their spirits be laid to rest. A few days later, Father Emmanuel arrived at the school with several other priests. The students and staffs gathered around the tree, their faces pale with fear. Mrs. Chidiogo stood at the back of the crowd, her arms crossed defensively, though her face betrayed her anxiety. The priests began their prayers, their voices rising in unison as they called for peace and deliverance. The atmosphere grew tense. Finally, after hours of prayers, the tree cutters were called in, axes in hand. They began to strike at the base of the tree. The wood groaned and creaked, as though the tree was resisting. But with each swing, the grip of the spirits weakened. At last, the mighty tree fell with a thunderous crash. As the dust settled, Father Emmanuel turned to Mrs. Chidiogo. "It is time to confess your sins," he said sternly. The principal looked around, her eyes with panic. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "I have done nothing wrong." But the priest's prayer seemed to have an effect on her. As he prayed, Mrs. Chidiogo began to tremble, and before long, the weight of her guilt became too much to bear. In a broken voice, she confessed everything: the pregnancy, the girl's death, the burial beneath the tree, and the years of lies. The students gasped in shock, unable to comprehend the cruelty of their principal. Mrs. Chidiogo was removed from her position immediately. The news spread quickly, and the school administration handed her over to the authorities. She was sentenced to prison for her crimes. Her once proud legacy now tarnished forever. The school offered a public apology to the family of the girl who had died tragically all those years ago. And from that day forward, no more students died from mysterious illnesses. The eerie cries that had haunted the school for so long were silenced, and peace finally returned to St. Martha's High Girls' School. The students could finally breathe easy, knowing that the vengeful spirit had been laid to rest. The end. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps in growing our channel. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a thumbs up, comment, like, and share. Thank you and God bless. Bye.